Thank you, Bellen. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Neufeld is in attendance. Excuse me, the other two applicants are here. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Robert Hutchings. I'll be chairing the hearing today. Joining me on the panel is Carrie Linkletter and Ron Merritt. The assessor representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment Department is Jeremy Pohl. Our recording secretary is Belen Rojo. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions again. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decisions by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 9 on our docket today. And before we do the swearing in, I'm going to make a statement regarding this hearing today. Mr. Pohl has informed us that he can only stay until approximately 4:20 today. It is noted we have 9 complex individual properties on the docket today. The sitting panel today has many years of experience dealing with the complexities of obtaining net leases and cap rates on vehicle dealerships, and also the sharing of common infrastructure expenses. As adjournments are extremely challenging, I'm requesting that all parties keep their presentation on point and use a high level of highlighting their key points and a summary of those key points. Your cooperation will be appreciated so we can attempt to get through all 9 of these properties on this docket today. Thank you. Ms. Rojo, can you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Pohl.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bellen. Good afternoon, Mr. Neufeld, Mr. Pohl. First item on the docket is item number 1, file number 22-3385. Address is 1717 Waverly Street, unit number 4. Pardon me, unit number 400. And we're dealing with a 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Pohl, bear with me 1 second while I get to your brief, please. So, Mr. Pohl, it's my understanding that you will present a broader evidence on the first docket, the first property that we're going to deal with, and that could be carried forward as information to be applied to the following properties with Mr. Neufeld. Would that be fair?
Correct. And I'm going to take the direction from the panel, given that this is an educated panel on the subject property types. And I'm not going to go into as great a detail as I usually would. It's fully in the brief. It's been repeated many times.
Yes.
I'm sure you've all seen it before. So I will go over the highlights and I'll be as succinct as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. When you're ready, Mr. Cole.
Okay. Roll number is 030914494400. Unit 400 of 1770 Waverly. Our assessed value today for the 2023 assessment is $3,601,000. It was built in 2007. Has a leasable area of approximately 15,900 or 15,290. If we go down to my page 7, starts the photos of the property, just to indicate what it is. Currently, it's a Kia Motors full service car dealership. As such, we do not have as the marketplace for car dealerships is always owner occupied. There are no leases in place, so we look to the marketplace for a similar property type, which is real retail in a similar location, high traffic flow, large enough that you could park on site versus a customer drive up for retail versus store the cars on site for car dealership purposes. So we go into the marketplace and we look for sites that if these property owners were not owner occupiers and they were looking to get similar sites, similar buildings of similar utility, what would be the market that they would have to enter into and pay? So big box stores, steel shell buildings, steel roofs, masonry, walls of construction with slab on grade in similar locations is what we're looking for. So that's the best orange to this apple, and that's the marketplace that we're putting on it. And I'll go through it, our comparables that we have, and then I'll go through some municipal board orders that indicate that although we're doing this currently, looking back in time, the municipal board is basically already ruled on that. So we'll touch base as we go. So on page 7 is indicating an 8 are the photos of the subject property. On page 9 is the comparisons that we use. We're looking for 2,000 and up or so of property type age to be similar and reflective to the subject property. We're looking in retail locations. We're looking for rents that are approaching the reference date. So given the fact that we're being a bit more selective in the comparables to be reflective of the subject properties, these are the comparables that we have. Many basically the same comparables we use from last cycle, except for one comparable, which is the comparable number 1. So when we go through over 500,000 square feet of inventory, 28 comparables, we have a median size of 16,000, a little over 16,000, and an average weighted and median rents of $18.80, $18.01, and $18.27. So we see that to get into the retail market year round, hovering $18 entry level to get in, and these are good tight range. So there's no outlier ranges where if you go and you grab a $6 rent and then you have a $20 rent, what relationship do those two things have together? A lot of agents produce that. That's not appropriate. You should be looking at what the market is and you have a proper analysis of the marketplace. So as you see here, there is some variance within our comparables, but what we have is a pretty tight range and we have a really good average, weighted average, and median very tight together, which indicates a good segment of the marketplace. And then in other words, when you look at the locations of properties, we see that they're on Keniston, St. James. We see that they're on Pembina. We see that they're on Sterling Drive, Empress. Some are on Nairn Regent area. So we're picking locations that are what the board's already outlined, national tenancies and prominent locations. So we'll get to the order as we go, but we'll follow suit with what's already been established. So on page 10, here's some car dealerships that have been reviewed by myself. There are more that I've reviewed, but this is in preparation for a large municipal board test case scenario which is going to be occurring. There may be 3, and we have well over 200 appeals for car dealerships, inclusive of this cycle. I'm sure they'll be pushing 300 appeals once we get to the actual year. So As we go through, just a few of the comparisons for sales. And I'll kind of skip over those. You can read through them if you like. What I'll touch base with is on page 8, starting on 19, we have a list for sale or lease. It used to be a Honda Focus, full service car dealership. It was listed in 2019 for $16.50 a square foot for net rent. And then the sale price was $3,575,000. This property did sell, but it was post reference, so I won't be speaking to the sale. But that was the asking price for the reference date, and that was the asking, if you're going to lease it, that was the asking rent. So again, asking rent, not contractual rent, but it is an indicator of market. So if we go down a little further, a bit older building, we're on page 30 on 23. Further down on Regent, it has a newer showroom area up front. But as you go back to the rest of the building, it was an older car dealership at one point in time. So, and this one here was again listed for sale in 2019 at 4.3 million, and a net lease of 250,000, which works out to be approximately $16 a square foot net. So you have two pretty good indicators on Regent, which is in the strip or so car dealerships, indicating 16 and 1650. So not out of line with what our marketplace is indicating at around $18.5. So we're pretty much where we would think it would be. The next order, and I've just put this in for reference, is Unit 90 of 3965 Portage Avenue. It is a condominium, his dealership within a condominium. This is the last order that we have coming from the municipal board indicating directive for guidance. It is dated, well, it means to the assessed value, or the assessment year is 2003 and dated for April 5th and 6th for 2004. That's the last one that occurred. It's quite dated, quite old. We haven't had an order since. This is subsequently why we have some issues, and we're heading back to a test case scenario, as this hasn't been looked at in a fresh way, and that's what we'll be doing when we go back to the municipal board when we have our test case. So, and I apologize if I cough my way through this. I'm still getting over being sick. That's why I'm not in the boardroom today and doing this. So, starting on page 36 is an order for four appeals, for property appeals, I should say, for car dealerships. If we go through the orders, I've highlighted it for your convenience on page starting on 42, indicating that they're using retail properties comparables, such as chain restaurants, discount stores, supermarkets, and that the assessor at that point in time, it was in his view that the auto mall was more similar to supermarket and national chain restaurants than miscellaneous retail or smaller proprietary type retail. So you're looking for national chains, big tenancies, that sort of thing. So when we go through the order, what they indicated on page 46, the board's findings, the board is satisfied that the appropriate method to value the subject property is the income approach. And there has been some argument whether it should be the cost approach or the income approach or direct sales approach. And once we go to appeal, I'll be reviewing all approaches at the municipal board. But for this point in time, income approach does appear to be the best, and it has been indicated by the board in the past. So I'm not going to be exploring any other approach than that. And highlighted in the second red box is that the board is satisfied regional retail with national rather than local tenants. The board is satisfied that subject is similar, although not identical, to large national and international retail properties located in near regional shopping facilities. The board will therefore use a capitalization rate, and they have a rate and a shortfall applied to that. But essentially what they're saying there is, yes, the big box store, national chain or international, if you will, in more developed areas is more similar to what we should be looking to as far as cap rates, and obviously that transcends back to everything associated with the cap, which is rent and expenses and vacancy and all the rest. So when we're looking at it, it appears that what we've been doing has already been adopted by the board in the past. Now, I wasn't aware of this order or these older orders. I just was aware of Unit 90 as we were doing it for cycles ago until I started researching for the municipal board order or the municipal board test case, which was going to already be heard, but it was been pushed off a little bit to at some point in the fall of this next year. So that's already been decided on. It's nice that it's already, our position has already been independently done in the past, unbeknownst to me. But it is a good indicator that mines have already been looking at this in the past, and this is the appropriate argument to use and appropriate comparables to source from.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Poole.
So aside from that, we'll go back to the workup. So that's the main argument that we'll have, and I apologize for going into it for a few minutes, but kind of had to cover some ground there.
Could I ask right now that that'll be repeated in the following 2 weeks?
Absolutely. I'm not even going to reference it again. We'll just carry it forward. There's no need to speak to it again. So
thank you.
So if we go back to our page, starting on page 3, it's a very simple workup. We have 15,290 square feet and at $15.61 a square foot, which produces a potential rent of potential gross rent of $230,677. We apply our standard parameters to it, which is 2% for vacancy, expenses non-recoverable at 3%, and a shortfall at $6, which produces a net operating income of $225,051, capped at 6 1/4, gives us our $3,600,816 arounded to $3,601,000. So with that, we have a pretty good analysis of the marketplace, and I think that should be confirmed. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor's evidence?
Yes, I do. Starting with page 3, this is the valuation. Was this all done by your model?
Yes, I made no changes to it.
And so where does the model derive? Do you know the parameters that were used? As, for example, the rent based on what is the rent based on? Where did you get your source information?
Well, I just indicated it's from retail.
So you're saying that those are retail numbers. Now, what about the portion of the operation that is used for repair facilities? Was there any consideration to looking at?
No, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at it. How do I defend the value, and what should the value be? So I'm not breaking out what's a VSG related and put in a VSG related rent or anything as such. I'm treating it as our comparable is a big box type environment, retail environment, and I'm taking that as a whole and transposing onto this.
Okay, so just to be clear, 100% retail.
Yeah, no, when I'm looking at it, that's exactly how I looked into the marketplace, as indicating from, and it's pretty good highlighted in red boxes from the school board order that was previously.
I don't really care about the order. I'm just asking about the model here. In regard to the vacancy, then where is the vacancy derived from?
It would be from retail.
Okay, so on your page, sorry, I just got to look to this. Page 5, is there a particular retail subcategory that was looked at?
No, like when I'm looking at it, it's looking at the subject properties as a whole, but it's also looking at it from a retail perspective. The model shows it 2%. Whether it varies within individual retail property type classes, I didn't get into that detail. But if I'm looking at this, I'd be looking at regional and power neighborhood locations for comparisons. I wouldn't be looking at strip malls because that would be small proprietor, local tenancies. They typically wouldn't get your national or international renters in there.
Okay, and on that basis, this is the model's opinion of retail. This isn't from any outside source like Johnson, is it?
No,
And is there anything in your model that actually used automotive related uses?
I don't believe so. No, they're a VSG of a smaller proprietor, and whether it's national or local, would be a smaller footprint, would be a different economic animal. I don't think it'd be appropriate to be putting on site.
In terms of the shortfall rate, did this also come from retail?
Straight from the model. So that's what they reviewed. They'd be reviewing retail, but they would also be reviewing costs that are associated with being reported. It'd have to be. So, but as far as how they determined specific individual retail or specific individual shortfall, that's what the modelers did. I'm just verifying.
But it's a retail orientation then?
Well, yeah, I just indicated that. So.
Oh, I'm just doing a very rough calculation of the actual tax load on the building. And I'm getting about
tax load perspective and and there's nothing referencing taxes in my brief. So I don't believe that's an appropriate question to ask.
Oh, it's my question.
Please stick to the evidence presented by the assessor. You could make your presentation or that information in your presentation if you wish.
I can take the long route or the short route. I chose the short route. I'm going to the long route. What is the shortfall comprised of?
The shortfall is usually CAM tax, obviously, and we have a $6 rent or $6 shortfall rate put on it.
You know what the breakdown is in the shortfall for between the CAM and taxes?
No,
I wouldn't be looking into that for this particular hearing. There obviously be very little CAM as it's owner occupied.
Mr. Cole, perhaps answer yes or no. So we can. Thank you.
No, I didn't look into the breakdown here.
Does the model allow a variance in it for properties that have a higher tax load than others? Or does it apply the same rate to everybody?
I couldn't comment on that.
Okay.
I couldn't comment on it.
Now, and the capitalization rate, where was that derived?
That'd be model based driven. There's variance.
Is it from retail as well?
Well, it'd be looking at retail, but it'd also be looking at the subject properties characteristics too. Older property, you look at location, you look at the age, you look at what it is.
Certainly, but where would the comparables be drawn from?
Well, it couldn't be compared. It couldn't be compared to what the actual sales are here because we don't have any sales. So at this point to be verified, there'll be a difference when we get to the municipal board level when I've done my due diligence on that. But as far as capitalization rates, there aren't any renters. They just sell the buildings as such. You can't get a capitalization rate from a car dealership. They don't rent.
Yeah, you testified earlier that this was model generated. So what part of the model came up with this cap rate? I think you inferred retail. So I'm wondering, is there a subcategory that was focused on?
I couldn't tell you that. I'm not part of the modelers. I just indicated that there are no actual rents in place. There are no tenancies, so they can't be capitalization rate for dealerships.
Mr. Cole answered. Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any other questions?
Yes, I'm moving along. Sorry, I lost my place here for a second.
Cap rates.
Okay. In your cap rate analysis on page 5, and I think you may have answered this, but I just would like to ask the question and get the answer. Have there been any investment sales of automobile dealerships, to your knowledge?
As far as no, there's been sales of them, but not for renter purposes. In
your preamble to this evidence, you made a statement, and I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind clarifying or repeating it for me, that you were looking for comparables based on an auto dealer seeking another location. Is that what you said? My
commentary in general was if they weren't going to be owner occupiers and they were looking to lease a place of similar utility, similar location, they would have to go into the marketplace, and they would have to see the other side of the coin as far as rent owner, landlord, or tenant, and what would they have to pay. Landlords are typically for a similar building looking at around the $18 mark, as you can see from the comparables that we brought in. So if they were to go out into the marketplace, that's what they would be. That's would be the rent that they'd be bearing.
And were the rents on page 9 to be indicative of that particular search?
There are some of them, yes.
Now, I'm wondering if you've read the Municipal Assessment Act definition of value.
Mr. Newfield, you know I have. Yes.
The value says the amount the property might reasonably be expected to realize if sold in the open market. Now, there's nothing in there about the motivation of a user to find new space. Is your premise of value mistaken?
No, absolutely not. If you actually took the time to read through the case law and municipal court orders that are associated, which guide the Municipal Assessment Act, you would see straight from the order which I supplied that they're looking to regional, national, regional, international, or I should say national.
So that's not the question. The question was,
Mr. Cole, can you answer yes or no, please?
Yeah, you can read it in the order I supplied.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, continue, please.
Mr. Chairperson, I think this is a rather important issue, and I really don't care to be pushed along by it. I think he's selected the wrong premise of value.
Okay.
And let's just spend a little
question for you, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay.
And we've got 9 properties on the docket. I hope I'll leave that for when you finish. I would appreciate it if we could keep the questions and answers on point by both parties, and then we could move along, please. I'm not trying to cut you off to your point, but I also would say to you that if you have statements to make about the procedure used by the assessor, you do it in your presentation again.
Okay, well, when to clarify an important issue is worth the time.
Please
That's my issue. On your comparables rents, page 9, do any of them sell automobiles?
No.
Are any of them permitted to sell automobiles in their respective zoning?
As far as zoning, I didn't cross-reference that. Some may, some may not. I didn't look from that analysis.
Are you aware of the registrations on the title of the subject forbidding any other use except retailing of vehicles? And there may be. I haven't seen any documentation of that, nor has there ever been any supply to the city. That I'm sure. So that was not taken into account at all on the legal restrictions, or a review of it was not done?
No.
Okay. The sales that you brought forward, just confirm we are looking at the income approach today, or were you planning on putting reliance on these?
No, what I'm showing is what they actually sold for. These are, since I glossed over them, but everyone's seen them before. For the 6 sales, and there are others. These are all that have been verified as land and building only. So this is what you see as far as what the marketplace is. And in a rising marketplace, you don't expect for these to be lower as you move forward. So these are just a rudimentary look at what the actual sales have occurred in the marketplace. And obviously unit 400, which is number 3, did sell for 4.2 million. I did research that, and
in your evidence?
No, it's not.
Was this property a retailer of Kia vehicles before and after the sale?
I didn't go back that far as who the tenancy was, just on what the fair market value was declared. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So you weren't aware that the dealership business sold along with the real estate?
Mr. Neufeld, Mr. Poll already answered that he isn't aware. Can we move on, please?
Did you investigate the relationship between the right to own a auto dealership and the real estate?
I didn't investigate it any further than this. That's the title of the sales questionnaire and the land transfer documents.
You brought up some asking rates, and they're on, I guess, starting on page 19, two sets of asking rates. These didn't lease, did they?
No, both sold after the reference date, but there was no lease in place. I apologize. There was a lease in place at the Hyundai location, but that was for COVID purposes, and it was not something I considered as far as market. That was more emergency place. There's more emergency purposes for that for COVID sites. So there was a lease in place at one point, but it was nothing that you would ever consider to be market.
All right, and so these rates then therefore have not been proven in the market, correct?
I already indicated their asking rates, similar to what the Johnson report would highlight.
You mentioned that both sold. Now I can only find one of these sales, which is 810 Regent. So you're saying that 1066 Nairn has sold as well?
I believe so, but it's post reference, so I wouldn't be commenting on any sale price or investigating it for this purpose of this hearing.
Well, you did bring it up, so I'm not going to put a lot of time on it, but didn't the sale at 810 Regent a post-reference sale come in below what it originally sold for when it had a dealership?
Mr. Neufeld,
I'm not getting into that.
Mr. Paul, Mr. Neufeld, he's not bringing up the sale. Can we move on, please? It's post reference.
Well, he did bring in the sale. He mentioned it, and that's prejudicial.
It was post reference and to ignore it. Can we move on, please?
What possibly may have changed since 2004 when you referenced that these orders, there hasn't been one since then?
It's kind of a vague question. To be more specific.
Well, obviously we know market indicators change, but what would have changed other than the market indicators? Is there a procedure that would have changed? Or are they saying today we're not using the income approach anymore? You said no, we're using it.
Simply put, that's the last order. That's why it's in and being referenced. There's been a significant amount of time that's from that last order for car dealership till now. There is nothing else we can cite for any kind of directive guidance. So as I indicated, we're going back to the municipal board and we're going to have a test case scenario where we'll look at it in a fresh approach. So I'm simply highlighting to the panel, to yourself, what's going to be occurring in the future. I brought in the last order. I brought in a few orders prior to that to indicate that regional, or I should say, national and international developed retail within the city is the most appropriate to be using. That's what the board said last time. That's what we're looking at now.
You weren't at that hearing, were you?
Obviously not.
So why do you say what the board said? You're testifying to what they said.
Because I can read the order. If you disagree with the order, you can make commentary on the orders.
You know, I was there, so I know what they said. I am so other than reading the order, then that's the limit of your knowledge of what happened in the past. Then is that correct?
I didn't review any of the submissions on either party's side. I just reading the order like everybody else.
What about all the consent judgments that followed that order?
Pardon me?
What about all the consent judgments that followed that order in 2004? Did you review those?
I didn't review anything other than the order, whether or whatever it affects.
Mr. Neufeld, those weren't presented in the assessor's evidence. Please move on.
Mr. Hutchins, I really don't care about anybody's time problem. This is the taxpayer's problem. We're going to spend whatever time is necessary. And I don't like my work misrepresented that I did in 2004. I know what I'm talking about here.
At the beginning, I'm sure you do. At the beginning of the hearing, I requested cooperation with all parties to keep their questions and answers on point. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I also would like you to be, I would request your cooperation in asking pointed questions with a pointed response from the assessor if we could move along quickly. Thank you.
In 2004, were you aware that this particular test case had options for either party to disagree and take in another case if they so desired?
Like I said, I'm not aware of anything other than what the order indicates.
And were you aware that after this order came about, that the assessor and the owners came to agreement and did consent judgments on numerous properties, believing that this order was fair? Were you aware of that?
I'm sure that played out that way. I didn't investigate any other appeals after this order and how it would affect. I've already answered your questions. Can we please move
Why?
on, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Poole, just answer yes or no. That would make it.
No.
Thank you.
Is there any other market segment in the city that has so many outstanding appeals than auto dealers by a percentage?
I didn't look at that. I couldn't comment.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Neufeld, at this time, could you please confirm that the questions you just asked can be carried forward to the following two properties on the docket?
Yes, I'd be content with that and restrict myself to anything new that comes up.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Carrie, do you have any questions of the assessor?
I just have one question regarding that sale in August of '09 for 4.2 million.
Yep.
Can you speak to that? Was it arm's length, etc.? Because now you're asking.
That's just what I indicated. It's highlighted on my page 10. So it's comp number 3. I looked at this sale. It was indicated on the sales questionnaire that it is just for the real estate only, land and building only. I went through land titles and I went through the land transfer documents. The fair market value was what you see there, 4.2 million. So from that point on, there really needs to be no further investigation in my mind's eye. They're declaring what it is at that point in time. They're savvy enough to the tax agents because they don't want to pay any more than they fair share on taxes, the property taxes. And when you go through solicitor, you go through what you see as far as land titles and declared fair market value. They're not going to be included in any business component. They're not going to be included in any goodwill. They're just going to be paying what's on the fair market value on the land, and obviously the building is on top of the land. So when you see 4.2 million, that's what they declare.
All right, and I thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Carrie. Ron, any questions of the speaker?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, bear with us 1 second while we pull up your brief, please.
I do have a follow-up question based on the question asked to the assessor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Were any of the participants in the sale interviewed?
No, not by myself.
And the person who signed it, you said they were savvy. What was their position?
I don't have it up in front of me right now. Obviously, they hire a tax agent to do their property tax appeal. And in order to do land transfer, you have to have a solicitor look at everything and review everything.
I'm asking about the questionnaire. I'm asking about the questionnaire. Who signed the questionnaire? Was it a car salesman, an appraiser, or a lawyer, or an accountant? Do you know?
Can you please give me a chance to look it up since I have the opportunity to? And I apologize for coughing, but a little under the weather.
Mr. Poole, if you don't have the answer, we'll just leave it at a no.
I'm just checking. I can't. Bear with me. I can't seem to locate it. There may have been a change of rule number, which would take more time than I can look at.
Yeah, so your response is no, is that fair?
I can't comment at this point, so no. I
Thank you.
apologize. I attempted, but yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Neufeld, regarding that?
Nope.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, has everybody had Mr. Neufeld's brief up? Ron, you okay? Carrie, you okay?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please. Unit 417 waiver.
The picture in page 1 shows the location of this. It's in an auto strata title, which means that it's essentially a condominium title. And all units as a 1717 has its own condominium. The registrations are simple. They forbid other use other than automobile retailing, automobile repair. You cannot put a shoe store in there or a pet store or a liquor store. It's going to have to be automobile related. And in Manitoba law, the condominium changes require an 80% approval rate. Nobody controls 80% in the mall. Mr. Dilawri has the largest share, and I think he's going somewhere around 45, 50%. So there is no ability to change that rule. It is going to be restricted to auto sales. As a result, the valuation has got to be automobile related. That's something that fits the legal requirements of the lot. Now, that is not a value in use. That is not a different form of value. That is a legal restriction. It's the same as zoning. It's like saying if you have R1 zoning, you can't build a slaughterhouse in somebody's backyard. So this is the bundle of rights that affects all properties. So we must look at strictly automobile related. And the hardships, of course, is that there is a lack of market data on this type of usage. And if one plans on looking at other properties, the first criteria has to be the right, not the size or the type of building. It's the property rights. That's chapter 1, verse 1 of the appraisal Bible. Thou shall appraise the property rights. Now, when we've looked at this site, firstly, a note on the transfer of sales of automobile dealerships. When they sell with the dealership impacts the value. And when they sell without a dealership, it goes as the real estate value. So the premise of value is quite simple, is we have to look at the value of the site for the market, not for its specific use. Now, when life was different, when we used to meet at 756 Pembina, we could look out the window at 750 Pembina. This is a Ford dealership where Ford decided we've got too many dealerships, we sell it. And what did it become? Sports equipment. And it's just a rundown old building now. It's the same idea with all these dealerships. When they lose their right to operate, to sell cars, they default to you could call it like a big box retail, but it's more like a low category retail. I would characterize it more to giant tiger than anything else. No frills. That's what the building becomes without an automobile. So every one of these transactions went with the dealership. So what happens in the world, and I'm been doing automobile dealerships since 1996, and the rules have always been the same. You want to buy somebody's a dealership, you have to have a location to put it in, or else the manufacturer refuses to transfer the franchise. And that location has to be one they like, which is the one you're in. There has been a clear determination by the manufacturers for co-location in auto malls. They like the concept. And so if somebody wanted a new Kia dealership, they would be forced to buy this one. So as a result, sales of automobile dealerships with ongoing relationships are not evidence of market value. They're evidence of a forced value. There are great examples, and we're not at that stage yet where we're going to talk about sales, but you sell a dealership without its franchise, you're going to get $100 a foot for it. And the great examples are out there. The one I quoted, 3700 Portage, when it was stripped of its.
So, would you mind sending your point about the dealerships detailing the sales?
This is the market for auto dealerships. This is the background. You've been presented with a very strange valuation, and I would like the board to value it based on what the Municipal Assessment Act says, which I will now repeat again. In respect of a property being assessed under this act, the amount that the property might reasonably be expected to realize if it's sold in the open market on the applicable reference date by a willing seller to a willing buyer.
Okay, we've noted that already. Okay, thank you.
None of the sales referenced by the assessor met that standard.
Okay.
Now, what we were looking at, as I said, is it's...
Now what is your evidence in summary?
I'm going there now.
Thank you.
What we were looking at is alternate uses for it, which are actually not legal on the site, but page 3, we have a number of operations of buildings, and I said I'm more of a giant tiger sort of concept on this, because it's just a stripped down shell space. There's nothing great about an automobile dealership. They're built to industrial standards, metal pre-engineered buildings. That's industrial. And they have garages where they fix cars and the exhaust system and hoists. So when we looked at this, there's actually 2195 Pembina, the giant tiger, which was a Canadian Tire that repaired cars, $9.80 a foot. That's the best comparable, and it didn't have title problems or restrictions on it. We have a number of other properties in here that relate to the various units and the strip malls in and around there, and brought in office just to look at the market for office. There's for example, bottom of page 4, looking at the Buffalo site. Buffalo is a converted industrial site that's now being used for office. $10.75 a foot, something like that. 1100 Waverly, which was a converted industrial site to office, $8.75, $11. 845 La Jamodier, which is a multi-use retail industrial, office in the front, parts in the back. This is what these properties really do. So the 1558 Wilson, which was another one of these converted industrial sites, and it's really on Waverly, where it was converted to office, and the achieved rates after the conversion were $10.50. This is where the product will go.
Okay, so in summary, you're asking us to you're relying on rates from about $9.80 to $11 a square foot. Is that accurate?
Those were the ones that I've referenced, yes.
So far, okay. Thank you. Please continue.
In terms of capitalization, there is no market for this, so then one must look at a sort of a miscellaneous style capitalization. And what we ended up doing on this was looking at the Collier's cap rate report for an overall view. And if you notice something of interest in the Collier's cap rate,
Could I ask you what you're on, please?
page 27.
Thank you.
If one looked at 3 sets of rates, suburban office, industrial, and retail, the spread was 6 to 6.75. So there's a sameness to rates. That's a good starting point, that regardless of what your use is, you're going to see something like that. However, on page 28, there are clear definitions of what goes into that, and none of those meet the definition of the subject. So what we do with this start point is then look at the deficiencies in the subject and extrapolate forward a rate. So the rate on page 2, going back to page 2, then we look at these deficiencies. Now, so your base is 6, everything else is a negative. Now, the first negative is the property rights, restricted usage. Now, this was a tough subjective call, but you have a limited restricted usage. So that's a negative factor. The amount that we would apply by that is about 1/4 point. Location, it's not on Waverly, it's not on Pembina, it's off. It's on a side street. So when you're looking at alternative use, no drive-by if you're looking at retail. Configuration was designed and built as an automobile dealership. So the costs to convert are going to be on the high side. You're going to have to spend money to convert it. Unless you're Royal Sports, then you just put it wherever you want. But that's a real rundown site. The conversion costs for the Giant Tiger from Canadian Tire are a good case in point. You're going to have to spend money to make it work. The building size, 11,000 feet, is on the small side for retail, and this building has got numerous small spaces and service bays. Design and layout, same thing. What we're seeing more as an automotive use as well as a retail use is the move to online sales on electric vehicles, which will change the utility of their existing building. All said and done, we're looking at 7.5% as a cap rate. In terms of shortfall, the major component of every shortfall are the taxes. The actual taxes would be $5.65 a foot. You pay that if you're empty. It doesn't go away. So you can't have a shortfall of $6. It has to be commensurate with the assessed value. To that, you also add utilities. You have to heat the building, and repair and maintenance, common area costs. And what happens during periods of vacancy, some of the costs decline, some of the costs increase. Insurance increases because it's vacant. There's no one to look after it. Security increases. You have to have somebody watch it. Shoveling the walk stays the same because you have to have someone to clean the walk so you can show clients the prospective site for tenancies. So $9.10 a foot is what our estimate is, not $6. In terms of non-recoverables, I think we're quite clear on this, and I'm going to repeat this 100 times after this, and I've done it hundreds of times before. The bottom line of any investment amount is the cash that goes back into the owner's hands. If he pays non-recoverables, they come off the NOI. We don't ignore them. A study on page 36 and 37 are Collier's managed sites with a variety of properties, office, retail, and industrial. These are the actual non-recoverable costs. And there's a couple of very interesting things about them. First of all, the mean isn't included. It's actually 7.2%. It got clipped. That's the median. The mean is 9.81, or the average.
Mr. Neufeld, this panel has heard this presentation many times before. I don't mean to bleed into other hearings, but could you get to the point what percentage you're using?
We're using a rate of a total of 7%, which is allocated 5% for non-recoverables, 2% for replacement reserve.
Thank you.
The old style.
Thank you.
And what I will point out again is that the textbooks on this matter very clearly say that this must be applied based on the neighborhood standard. The neighborhood standard isn't set by an assessor or by an appraiser.
Okay.
It's set by the market.
Noted. Thank you.
Other than that, then we have one other issue, which is the lot at the back. And the lot at the back was purchased on a bit of a bit of an error. It was an old rail spur, and it was offered to these people as having access to Henlow, and they do not have access to Henlow with the site. It was cut off, and so it does give them some advantages to parking more cars, but it does not give them the access they want. It cannot be merged because it's a fee simple title, whereas the subject is a strata title, or at least the assessment department can't figure out how to merge it. But we are looking to have that value reduced. Now, I do believe this has gone to hearing, and prior to this, and the 298,000 is no longer in effect. The board did reduce that, and we just want that included in the valuation. And I'll just get the number real quickly right now. So I do want to change my final value.
Thank you.
Chris. I haven't mislabeled. I don't have it here. I believe the number was 98,000 though. And just going from memory. So rather than subtracting 298, would just subtract 200,000. So that comes to a value of 1,844,000.
Okay. Just to confirm, the assessment on the realty portion is 2,042,000 less a lot allowance of 98,000 equals $1,844,000 as your requested value.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Okay, thank you. Mr. Pohl, any questions? And it would be appreciated, pointed, and again, with responses pointed as well.
Sure. I have a question regarding the restrictions on site due to the condominium development, which you indicated. That is a self-created restriction as far as what can be used on site, correct?
Absolutely not. No, it's registered on title. Once it's registered on title, the condominium owners control it. You need 80% approval to change it.
Let me rephrase that. Did anyone from the city impose this, or is this the condominium owners themselves imposing it?
Well, it's immaterial. It's registered.
No, it's very immaterial.
It's what they are living with. It's not a voluntary thing.
Themselves.
It's not a voluntary thing that they can lift tomorrow if they want. One person can stall the whole thing if they don't want to move. It's a right.
You're not answering my question. Is it self-imposed by the condominium owners?
No, it's not a self-imposed thing.
No, I believe Mr. Neufeld has answered the question. Let's move on, please.
You have no, obviously no rents for car dealerships?
There's one former car dealership. I'm just looking for it to see if we had quoted it. We had 231 Oak Point, which was a motorcycle dealership and now is a used car. I do not have it in here. It's $7.
You have no full service car dealerships.
I think this is all that was available in the market. They're not common to see them rented.
That's all the questions I have. I will have some native commentary though.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, any questions of Mr. Neufeld?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ron, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ron. And Mr. Neufeld, I have no questions either. Could I confirm that, would it be fair that in the next 2 weeks coming up that your representation on the cap rate adjustments and the Johnson report and that kind of thing be carried forward? Would that be fair?
If that is the case, I will gloss over them. If I know anything, I'll bring it up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a 5-minute break for a second?
right now, Ron, or can we just finish?
Oh, all right.
I think-
Whatever.
Sorry, I'm voting with Ron on that. I have something I have to do, if that's okay.
Well, I'd like to finish this property. So, Mr. Poole, summary, please.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Summary comments very, very simple. We're following the last board order, or I should say the board order that was highlighted in red, which indicates that it should be national, international, more developed retail comparison that should be used for comparables rather than smaller proprietary type strip retail, that kind of thing. So that's the comparables that we're bringing in. But what I want to pay close attention to is what was indicated as far as the self-created condominium development restrictions. We have in place through the ownership groups a restriction put in place. We are valuing on a fee simple basis, not a lesser interest. Now, if there's some kind of restrictive, encumbrance put on, we're not going to be considering that. We do it on a fee simple basis, and that's how we're looking at it as such. So,
Okay.
With that, I think that's enough the commentary that I need. The rest of the commentary for many.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, thank you. I think right from the beginning that this whole thing started off wrong with the assessor's position. It's not about what it's going to cost to go somewhere else. It's what the value of the property you got is worth. And there's where we're having the major miscommunication. We're not meeting up here. Car dealerships are extremely difficult to value because most all of them, the inherent value is in the ability to sell cars. When times are tough, they sell for dirt cheap. When they're selling a lot of cars, they're expensive to buy. It's all related to the business. The best examples, and the way it should really be done, is to look at the sales of vacated car dealerships to see where they really landed in the market. And it's not good.
Okay.
There is.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There is no such thing in the Municipal Assessment Act as fee simple. It is market value. You got to consider the condominium strata dealership rights. They can't be ignored. And the concept of them being placed on, and I know you want to get this moving on, but when this was set up, there was a developer who established that it's going to be an auto mall, and he sold and pitched it to dealers. They didn't put it on themselves, nor can they take it off. Self-inflicted damage, if it is that or not, is still damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. And I will consider, can both parties confirm that those summations can be applied to the next two properties on Mr. Neufeld's docket if appropriate?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And unless something new comes up, we'll restrict ourselves.
Understood. Thanks for coming. Okay, that concludes item number 1, Unit 41717 Waverly. And we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess, please. Thank you, Belen. I will now call the hearing back to order. Next item on the docket is item number 2, file number 22-945. Address is Unit 51717 Waverly Street. And we're dealing with a 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Poole. Item number 2, bear with me 1 second here. Okay, Mr. Poole, Unit 500. So I would ask you to, that we will consider the evidence presented on the first brief, on the first item. And if you would just summarize your income for us, please.
Sure. Roll number is 03091449 The unit is 517 Waverly. The 2023 assessment is for $3,431,000. It was built in 2008. It has a leasable area of 14,340. It was a 2010 sale for $4,095,000. That was verified for land and built by myself. Similar as fashion as the other sale that we spoke to, and it is in the comparisons that I've used in the brief. On page 3 is the workup. 14,340 square feet. We have $15.73 applied to the property, which gives us a potential rent or potential PGI of 225,568. With our standard parameters that we've already discussed applied, gives a net operating income of 212,740, which is capped at 6.2%. That gives us a value rounded to 3,431,000. So pictures are on page 7. As you can see, it's laid out the way that, as you can see in the site. And like I said, on page 14, the sale is number 2 highlighted, or I should say sale number 2, which is the 4,095,000. So with that, all things being equal, we've already discussed, I'm open to questions.
Okay, just to confirm, Mr. Poole, you're using the same rental comparisons on page 13, same market evidence on page 14, probably the same municipal board information. Is that correct?
All of it's the same, yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, I will ask you to confirm, please, that we should accept the questions that you the assessor on the prior brief regarding his rental rates, vacancy, expenses, and the cap rates. Would that be fair that he used and they be applied to this brief?
No, there are some differences on some of it, and I'll deal with the differences.
Okay, yeah, just the differences, please. But can I assume the other ones are asked and answered?
Oh, yeah. No, we won't ask the same question over. Don't worry about that.
Okay, bear with us, Mr. Okay, so Mr. Neufeld, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, I do. Your workup, you have listed plan area of 7,340 and leasable 14,340. Are you certain about this?
As far as the area, we have that area on file. There's been no contention before that I'm aware of. We have a 14,324 square foot reporting of the on the INE. So I mean, it's right there.
I'm looking at prior submissions on this from the assessment department. I have different areas, and because of course the second floor.
If you turn to my page 9,
okay.
Total leasable area 14,324 square feet, submitted in 2020, late obviously December 2020.
Okay, well, I'm not disputing that number. What I'm looking at is the split between first and second floor.
We treated it as economic unit, so.
You have a plan area of 7,340, and past submissions have put that number, I believe, at 8,852, with the balance being the upper area, a smaller amount of space.
Yeah, no, you can see the property is what it is, but what we're looking at is the total leasable area, what they indicated to us. So,
okay,
right.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Anything else?
Does every second floor area correspond to the first floor area, such as in the drive-through area?
Well, obviously, don't drive through the second floor, Mr. Neufeld.
The drive-through area in the first floor, does it correspond to area on the second floor?
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, if you've got different information, then you can present it, please. The assessor is presenting the 14,340.
Okay, if we're going to rush this along, you're going to make me miss this point here. We have different levels, first and second.
We understand totally what you're getting at, and you can deal with it in your presentation.
So has the workup here all considered it to be main floor space, or is there a breakdown between first and second?
No, it's just we're treating it as one economic unit, like I already stated.
So do so you're saying you're not sure of this, but the 14,000 feet, do you agree represent both first and second floor?
They're reporting within 2 square feet of what we have. Like,
I'm not asking what the reporting. You're the assessor.
I don't have your question.
And
Do
is
you
that,
know?
yes, Mr. Newfeld, can we move on, please?
No. Do you know if it's first and second floor?
It's of course first and second floor
Okay.
combined.
Thank you.
Are you using a different rental rate for the first and the second?
No,
He
I'm not. You
he already
see,
answered he isn't. In his
Where's
work.
the, where is the breakdown then?
I'm not going to answer any more of the questions on this point. You can see it in black and white on my brief. Mr. Chairman, I'd like a point in order to move on.
Mr. Newfeld, he's using a blended rate of 1573 in his income stream. Ask and answer, please.
Does the second floor have supporting capability?
As far as
Can it hold a car?
live load, like what are you referencing? Live loads?
Can it hold a car?
Mr. Neufeld, I don't believe that it has a lift to go up to the second floor as far as that would support a car. I believe it used to be a former dealership as far as I believe it was Suzuki. So there was some.
Mr. Newfeld, he's answered your question about his, he's answered your question about his opinion on the square footage and the blended rate. Will you please move on?
Does each floor have ceiling heights that are comparable to your comps?
There may vary. I can't answer that because my comparables vary.
And what is the second floor in use for now? Do you know?
No, I haven't inspected the property.
As opposed to other automobile dealerships, this one is configured with drive-in bays rather than a service area. Was that considered in the valuation?
No, we're looking at straight from retail rents in a retail environment. We're not looking at it as a performance from actual car dealership usage and what rents may be implied because there are no rents to pull from. We've been over this. We've been over this for cycle on cycle on cycle. So this is all common knowledge to all parties here today.
How many service bays does it have?
From the photo indicating 1, 2, 3, 4.
And how many does the last part one have?
6 or 5 is 6 on the opposite side. So it looks like there's 6 service bays.
And how many did the last one have?
Let's not go there. That's a different hearing.
I couldn't comment. And let me be clear. There are 6 overhead doors. There may be more service bays inside of the actual dealership. I can't comment on how many actual specific work areas there are for specific vehicles. There may be multiple.
There may be. Do you know that?
No, he doesn't. No, let's move on. Please.
The sale you mentioned was at a Suzuki dealership before and after the sale, to your knowledge?
I can't comment on that. I just looked at what again what the sales questionnaire indicated and what the title search indicated, what the land transfer document indicated as far as price achieved.
Have you considered any obsolescence due to the design and its planned initial usage?
Not in particular, because again, we're looking at it from a retail perspective. But if you look at it from a vehicle service or vehicle dealership component, you see that it's Alfa Romeo in there. It's a high-end dealership. They wouldn't be occupying the site if there was any.
As a retail usage, would you need barrier-free access to the second floor?
Possibly.
Does it have barrier-free access to the second floor?
I haven't been in the building. I can't comment on that.
Have you when you consider the retail use and the obsolescence, then you don't consider any change in the capitalization rate to allow for investment for change?
I can't comment on any obsolescence that may or may not occur. I haven't been in the building. If you look at it from a dealership perspective, they attained a very high-end dealership in this particular location. If there was any,
Okay, Mr. Ask and answer. Thank you, Mr. Newfeld.
I'm sorry, I'm just there are 55 pages. Just scanning through them to see if there's anything different about this. Um, on page 10, did you consider their reporting of a rent?
What page you referring on, page 9 and 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are reporting that.
Did you investigate the parties to the transaction?
If you look on page 9, they check owner occupied. I don't need to.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ron, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, we'll get to your brief, please.
Yeah, and the point is, this company paid $450 for the pleasure of being told to get the hell out of your boardroom. I don't care for this attitude. I'm going to spend whatever time is required to cover the ground. I will not repeat what's been said, but we are going to deal with it. Now,
Mr. Neufeld, I don't appreciate the language used. This is a respectful workplace. First of
then
all,
give me respect.
I am, but I'm also trying to stick to ask both parties to make the questioning and answering simpler. That's all. I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but please make the answers and questions simple. And when the assessor or the applicant responds, accept that and do not argue about it. Okay, so we can move along. Thank you. Your comment is noted, but please continue with your brief.
This site was designed as a Suzuki dealership when it was built in 2008. The Suzuki sells motorcycles, snowmobiles, and vehicles. So the first floor was designed as a showroom for vehicles, the second floor a showroom for motorcycles and snowmobiles. There is a freight elevator in the rear to bring up the snowmobiles and motorcycles. The floor loading will not support a full-sized vehicle. Each floor ended up having a low roof, which is unlike other automobile dealerships where a low roof is not in vogue. High roofs are required. The stalls for servicing were set up for snowmobiles, motorcycles, and small vehicles. They are single bays, and they are undersized. The whole concept is completely obsolete and much too small for modern marketing. The current owner purchased the site with a Suzuki dealership in place. To everybody's surprise, don't know the exact date, but it was well after the sale, Suzuki decided to withdraw from North America. And at that point in time, they gave approximately 1 year notice, and anyone who has a Suzuki dealership was left holding the bag. For several years, the owner sold used cars from here and eventually secured an Alfa Romeo franchise. The Alfa Romeo franchise, because it's a limited sale product, was about the only thing that could happen, as it is completely undersized. The first floor is approximately 1,800 square feet, and the upper floor is approximately 6,000 square feet. Currently, the upper floor has been in use as offices because you can't put a car on the hoist, and they don't need those offices. It's completely obsolete. The whole property is an obsolete site for marketing. Now, the remedy for this would be demolition and reconstruction. That is it. The value we'd put on it was in consideration of this, and but also in consideration of, let's call it the giant tiger model, obsolete, $12 a foot. Vacancy rates were calculated by a mix of the retail and industrial means. I never got into this before, but the Johnson report, an automobile dealership is a mix between retail and industrial. because the industrial encompasses the garage, the retail encompasses the sales portion of it. And that is the way they've been appraised for decades by anyone in my business, is a blend of retail and industrial. That gives us a 5.65%. The rest of the parameters are all the same. The capitalization rate was the same. And my opinion on this is that I would not have capped this low because it is obsolete. I know the property quite well, as I do with all of these sites. It's probably one of the most physically inferior automobile retailing locations as far as amenities go, and conversion to an alternate use is going to be expensive because you've got a second floor to deal with. There is no people carrier up to the second floor, so it would be construed on an alternate use as not as primary space but as accessory space, which commands a lower rent. Hypothetically, this is the rate we would put on it today. The last issue are the lots, and I believe they've been resolved. This one owns 2 extra lots. The one at the rear, which was the old Henlow Spur, and the one at the front, the cul-de-sac they own, which is now assessed at 0. The spur at the back was at 245, and I believe that was changed to, again, about 79,000. I just don't remember the exact number. So I would then adjust my value by the change that has been incurred upwards by approximately $150,000. So the value we're looking for is 1914 less 70,000. So that would be 1844.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. So just to confirm, you're using a cap rate of 7.5% and coming up with a value of 1,914,000 less a lot adjustment of $70,000 equals a finalized request value of $1,844,000.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Pohl, could we assume the questions you asked me for should be applied to this, the question of the appellant?
Yeah, I just have 2 other questions quickly. I missed it on the first brief, but can I ask just 2 additional questions in regard to reference information? On page 6, your article, no more dealer markups. Ford wants to move online, only sales for EVs. That is dated June 2nd, 2022, which would be post-reference.
It's a recap of information that was available in the market before then. It was published then, but the knowledge was well known.
Okay, post-reference. I'll let it up to the board to decide. And then the June 2021 portion of the Johnson report that you're using, that would be June 2021, which would be past the reference date, correct?
Absolutely incorrect. That's been put forward too many times for you to keep repeating. That's utter nonsense.
When is
said this time and time again. Mr. Johnson collects the data in 2020. He finishes it in December of 2020. He puts it together and prints it in June of 2021.
Okay.
There's not a single comp in here that is dated before December of 2020. Books right here.
Mr. Neufeld, okay, yeah, we've heard it, and the answer's noted. Thank you.
I'll leave it up to the board to decide if it's post-reference or not. That's the only questions I have, and that carries forward
Okay.
for everyone in the next.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions of the applicant?
I would just like to confirm with Mr. Neufeld that he has inspected this property. You alluded to that.
Numerous times, probably been there about 20, 30 times. That last time was a nice cocktail party.
Okay,
And-
thank you, Mr. Neufeld.
Oh,
anything else,
sorry.
Carrie?
I just wanted to also confirm, is this still being run as an Alfa Romeo dealership?
Yes, that's correct. Alfa Romeo, and they're also marketing some of the Maserati vehicles. But they're really Grand Cherokees underneath. I shouldn't say that.
All right, I thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Carrie. Ron, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ron. And I have no questions either. That concludes item number 2, Unit 500, 1717 excuse me, Waverly. Next item on the docket is item number 3, file number 22-3399. Address is Unit 520, 1717 Waverly Street. We're dealing with a 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Poole, bear with me one second here till I get your brief up. Okay, Mr. Poole, when you're ready, please. Shall we consider the evidence, similar evidence presented on the previous 2 properties as being presented, and you can just deal with your income and expense if that's appropriate?
Absolutely. I highly encourage that. So the 2023 assessment is for 3 million. Excuse me, is for 3,929,000. Effective year built is 2014, so it's a fairly new build. We have a leasable area of 16,134 square feet. If we look on page 7, is the build. Is the subject properties build? It's Jerry Gordon's Mazda. He moved from Pembina, obviously here. We have a book rent. They're obviously owner occupied, and all the same information we've already talked about has already been will be referenced for this one as well. We'll just go straight to page 3. So the 16,134 square feet, we have $15.88 applied to it, which produces a PGI of $256,208. Our same standard parameters apply that we've already discussed today. Produce net operating income of $241,615, capped at 6.15%, gives us our capitalized value at $3,929,000 rounded. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Neufeld, can we assume the same questions can be carried forward? If you have any other questions, please proceed.
Certainly. I noticed that the cap rates on this differ from the previous 2. Is there a reason?
The newer build. It takes everything into account, so this is a newer build. Bit lower cap. All things being
and the wall height of 19 feet, that's an exterior wall height?
Yes, so
okay. Sorry, I just wanted to verify something here on the floors. This is a multi-floor building, correct?
I believe so, yes. I haven't been in it.
And you put the same rental rate on both levels?
Correct. We treat it as one economic unit, yes.
I am used to seeing the model show 1st and 2nd floor. Why would it not in this particular instance?
Very few do now. We have virtually every car dealership as just the leasable area in total. If there's any left, the assessor should be catching in and making an adjustment for it. We went through the whole populace. I don't believe there's too many others out there. So if you see it as if there's breakout in MES or if there's a breakout in secondary level, it should be inclusive of one.
But then there's no separate value then. We don't, is there a blend or was it the same rate? Do you know?
It's the same rate.
Okay. Just 1 second. I just want to see if there's anything new here. Yeah, just one last check here. Yes, page 2, the sale. What does this consist of?
Page 2 is just the land.
There's the land, okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Carrie, any questions of the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just noticed, Mr. Poole, your rate per square foot is very consistent with all these properties. So are they very similar?
Yeah, we treat it the same. And let me make it very clear. we can't say that this particular unit or that particular unit for car dealership should get, for a car dealership, if it were to rent, there would be higher or lower. There is no populace to draw from. So we're just simply taking the rents that we see in the marketplace for similar age properties from retail and transposing it here. So given that these are all roughly the same size, roughly the same age, more or less, within a few years, obviously this one's a bit newer, the rents should be roughly the same. That's what we're seeing.
Mr. Paul, what about the transaction in 2009, the consideration, the sworn value, the purchase price?
That was for land only. We had I'm not sure why Mr. Newfield doesn't remember this, but we had a municipal board scheduled for this property, and it was withdrawn by Colliers. So it was for land only. We've had briefs submitted. The building wasn't in place. It was built in 2014. So it was just the land.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
All right.
Anything on?
I thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. I'm gonna please allow us to get to your brief.
I had a follow-up question.
Okay, go.
The question asked about similar rents. None of these sites have the same land plan ratio either. Was that not taken into account for setting rates?
No, from what I've noticed, if you're looking at from what I've noticed, car dealerships have been building onto themselves quite thoroughly. Everywhere you have a small dealership, in order to meet the requirements to continue to be a dealership, you either put in
Sorry,
additional.
this is a model question, not your concept of automobile dealerships. Does the model not consider the land plan ratio in any
Mr.
factor?
Newfield, I think we've established that the assessor does not prepare the model and will not answer correct questions related to that kind of evaluation.
I just wanted to hear that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newfield, when you're ready, please, your brief.
Yes. So this is Jerry Gordon's Mazda, and they relocated from 550 Pembina Highway, which incidentally is a very interesting case law in itself at the municipal board. But we're talking about this site. Now, firstly, the information presented by the assessor was inaccurate. There was a purchase of land. Originally, when Jerry sought to look into it, he was the rack rate was offered to him at half that price, $535,000. He didn't want to move here. He was forced to by Mazda. Mazda said, move to the mall or we'll sell a franchise to somebody else who will move to the mall. Such is the nature of the business. So this is how the forces of real estate get mixed up with the forces of business. Now, Mr. Pohl misrepresented the municipal board as well, because we withdrew with prejudice.
Okay.
Based on
Okay. Thank you.
We didn't agree with it.
Okay.
Okay, and you're right. I'm not going that way. I just wanted to let you know it was with prejudice.
Perfect.
Now we moved to the new site, and then Jerry builds his building, and this is the assessment. So we're looking at it pretty much the same way as the rest. There's nothing, no other new stories for me to tell you. The issues are the same in terms of location and alternate use. It's very, very limited. Now, there is one additional factor here. Now, if you look at the picture, there's cars parked to the west of the property. And you're talking about the condo and whether they're self-governing or not. Well, this particular person wanted to hook up. He was denied because it's a property right. So these rights are strong, they're real, and they're empowered. So it is something to consider. We have applied the hypothetical rate again of $12. We'll call it the giant tiger rate, and the same cap rate. Now, the lot was settled. It was a recommendation, surprise, surprise, at $109,000. So the value we're looking is 2,152 minus the 109,000. $2,043,2043.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Pohl, any questions other than the ones you've already asked?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pohl. Ron, any questions of the applicant?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. That concludes 1717 Waverly Street, unit
Well,
number.
I'm done here, so I'm just wondering if just maybe permitted a very, very short summation.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Neufeld.
Unless the assessor has something he'd like to say first.
No, I don't have any.
Okay, so essentially we are dealing with a number of issues here. Property rights is first and foremost. These are condominium lots. These are not fee simple estates. You must consider that. You must consider the restrictions on the site, and you must consider the specialty uses of the buildings. They're not going to become a hot retail location because firstly, all the hot retail locations are gone. Who's building anything after IKEA? There's nothing to do anymore. There's no demand. This alternate use, the world of automotive retailing changes. We put together a value that we think is as close as possible. We're forgetting about the bright, shiny objects that they sell in the building. It is the value of the property offered for sale, not the concept of how much should a dealer pay to go somewhere to sell cars. And that is probably the most galling point of this all. That is not the nature of value that we're supposed to look at. These things get built on business needs and when they do get sold without the dealership, they hit rock bottom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. That concludes unit number 520, pardon me. Where are we? 500. Item number 2.
Can I request just a 3-minute break?
Yeah, just wait a second, Jeremy, please wait. Okay,
Oh,
Mr. Neufeld, that is.
I'm going to apologize for raising my voice as well. I was a bad boy.
No, noted. That concludes Mr. Neufeld's briefs today, I believe. And so you're finished, Mr. Neufeld, I believe. And excuse me, we'll take a quick 2 or 3 minute break. Is that fair?
Thank you.
Then we will get up our next Mr. Story and Mr. Smith, I believe. Right. Okay. Thank you, Bellen. I will now call the hearing back to order. Bellen, could you please swear in the applicants?
Hey, Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Trevor Smith,
And you affirm the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Story, please state your full name.
Sid Story,
And you affirm the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Our next item on the docket is item number 4, file number 223351. Address is 1717 Waverly Street, unit number 600, and we're dealing with the 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Pohl, when you are ready, please.
Sure. Roll number is 0309129760. It is unit again 600 1770 Waverly. The assessed value is for $9,399,000. Excuse me. We have an effective year built 2015. We have a leasable area of 43,621 square feet. If we go over to page 7, shows the area of the property. The photo of the property, I should say. So obviously it's the Crown Toyota. It is owner occupied. We know that. So with all the comparable information that we've already discussed, we'll apply it again here today. So we'll get straight to the workup, which is on page 3. We have for the 43,621 square feet, $14.86, which gives us a PGI of $640,208. Our same standard parameters apply that we've already discussed today. So the net operating income is produced is $610,952, and that's capped at 6.5%, which gives us value of 9,399,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Just to confirm, Mr. Cole, using the same rent comparables as previous briefs on page 10, same sale information on page 11, and
Everything the same.
and cap rates. But Mr. Smith, could I just confirm, would you like a moment to review these, or are you good with having reviewed them already?
Oh, we've already reviewed them, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Smith or Mr. Story, who is asking questions? Any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Mr. Smith, will we ask you questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So similar to the properties that have already been dealt with today, the model here for both this property and the other properties that we'll deal with is all model driven, correct?
Correct.
And the parameters, well, for auto dealerships, as we both agree, I'm sure there are no arm's length leases or capitalization rates out there in the market. Is that accurate?
At this point in time, I don't believe there is any, no.
Okay, so as I think had already been mentioned, the model then is essentially based on a retail drawing its parameters from the retail sphere in the market. Is that accurate?
That'd be correct, yes.
Okay, and just bear with me here. You surprised me with how quickly that went. So my thoughts in order. So sorry. Let's do it in order, I guess. So in terms of the valuation model on page number 3, so the rental rate is model driven at $14.86 a square foot.
Correct.
And sorry, I am looking for your lease comparable page.
Page 9. Oh, sorry, 10 in this one.
Normally I have them marked. Okay, there it is. So I'm just confirming this is the same one that. So this is sorry, this is the same comparables that we've dealt with in all of the automobile hearings that you and I have dealt with. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. All right. So just in looking at page number 10 and the rental comparables, then, as had already been brought up, none of these are automobile related, correct?
None.
And when I look at the subject property locations, and I'm going to generalize here, but I'm seeing four main retail centers. They're essentially power centers, and those would be number 1, the Polo Park area. Number 2, the IKEA Seasons of Tuxedo area. Number 3, the Leela McPhillips Garden City retail node. Number 4, Regent and Lagimodiere Power Center node, and then number 5 being the Keniston and McGilvery node. Is that a fair characterization?
Generally, yeah.
Okay. And bear with me here, because we're only going to do this once. When I go through the leases that are shown here, they're all dominantly national or international big box tenancies, right?
Correct.
And so that The tenancies that we have here, when I run through them, we're looking at Staples, The Brick, Ashley Home, Michael's, Save on Foods, Lazy Boy, Bouclair, Dollarama, Marshalls, Pier 1, Bed Bath and Beyond, Mark's Work Warehouse, Petland, Sport Check, Home Depot, oh, pardon me, Petland, I guess we covered. There's a Good Life in there somewhere. These would be the tenancies that are represented on that particular sheet.
Yeah, no Home Depot though. Obviously, that's too large of a national. That's too large.
It was next to a Home Depot. My mistake. That I read my note wrong there. Okay, those would all be national tenancies with the national covenants then?
Right.
Okay. All right. Let me skip forward here. They're backwards. Moving down in the valuation to the capitalization rate. So for this particular property, it's set at 6.5%. If I recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were noting, I believe, that the model would be drawing from regional shopping centers and power centers in terms of your model capitalization rates as shown on page 5.
Correct, but it'd also be looking at the contrast with the subject properties itself as well. Obviously, if you have a newer build, it's going to be more reflective than if you have a very old build kind of thing. So it looks at the subject property's location, the characteristics of the subject property, and then also out into that marketplace that you mentioned. Okay, and that's fair, but we have no actual cap rates from auto dealers. Correct? No, but no. So just quickly on the cap rate front again, so looking at regional shopping centers, the 20th percentile to 80th percentile ranges from 6.1 to 7.2, and then power center ranges from 6.35 to 6.95. So we'd be towards the lower end of the range of both of those two retail types, correct? No, I'd say that's pretty much right in the middle, 6.5%. Okay, well, I suppose it depends which one we're looking at. The regional shopping centers, so that would be your Polo Parks, your St. Tel centers, your Garden Cities of the world, correct? Right. So they would have both retail anchors such as the main anchor stores for each of those shopping centers, and a very wide variety of multi-tenant retail within them, correct? Right. Okay. And the size would be dramatically different as well, right? In that, I don't have the stats in front of me, but your regional shopping centers would be, I'm honestly not sure what the bottom end of that would be in terms of square footage. Would it be 800,000 square feet or? I really can't comment. Like, I mean, that's a bit outside of my scope of what I deal with from day to day, but I try to eliminate. Obviously, you see the comps that I brought in. I'm not bringing in Walmart comp. I'm not bringing in a Home Depot comp. Those are just too large, and they're different economic animals to begin with. So, right. Yeah, I don't mind bringing in maybe a grocery store because it is bare bones build, and if it's a certain size, then you can look at that. But typically, those leases are 20, 30. Longer than that, and they're very old and dated, so they kind of weed themselves out on their own, let alone the characteristics of the building being
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
not close enough. So.
That's absolutely fine. I don't think I have any other specific questions at this time. If anything additional, oh, pardon me. Just very quickly, page number 11. The VCD improved sale comparables that you've provided here. I do not want to get into the detail here. I think you've got a letter in here somewhere specific to the property on Regent, but it also is identical to the 2537 Pembina site as well, sold by the same owner. So the 1496 Regent, number 6, and number 1, 2537 Pembina. Those, I'm assuming you have the same email for the Pembina one. Those are both indicated that they paid an above market rent and had a pre-negotiated purchase option at the end of the first 5-year term. Is that correct?
Correct. Just to be clear, I verified that with the contact person for Pattison. They contacted their real estate people, and they're obviously a very big company. And they confirmed that they paid an elevated rent. Again, we bringing in about an $18 rent for roughly, I believe it was $25, $24 triple net. Don't quote me on that. It's either one or the other. I don't have it in front of me right now. But they indicated it was a, as the email kind of goes along, and for the other, I don't have the other email in, but this summarizes it the same.
Okay.
It
Thank
was
you. Answered. Thank you.
That's great. And sorry, last question that's popping in mind here. So the two brochures that you have beginning on page 21 and onwards there, neither of those properties leased or sold during the time frame prior to the valuation date, correct? And they were on the market for a year and a half. Is that accurate?
One of them did lease, but it was again a COVID site, and it was not a typical rent, which I would put anyway too. So
Right.
It was a temporary, but generally both of them did not lease. But the asking rates are what they were. As already indicated in the other deal, that they did sell post reference, but I'm not putting any weight to it, and I'm not speaking to the sale after. So.
Yeah, I believe those are all of the questions that I had. Mr. Story, did you have anything?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Shall we consider those questions in the upcoming briefs with an allowance for possible other questions that might be relevant to the individual brief?
Yes, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Smith. Excuse me. Carrie, any questions of the assessor?
Yes, just one quick question. Mr. Pohl, I am assuming from your answers on the previous properties, you did not have a chance to inspect this one?
No, this one I haven't never been.
Okay, and any of the other properties we're going to hear today you didn't inspect?
Bear with me here. No, none in the Waverly. No, none of them.
Oh,
I have
okay.
file photos. I have, we have obviously file photos. We have pictures of them, obviously. So we have a good feel for it. We have a good feel for it, and every
Right.
plan for the
So-
building on. But I haven't walked through it with an agent for appeal purposes yet.
Okay, so I just have one more question in regards to the site. This says that on your brief, you've got a build of 2013 to 2019. So I
Yep.
assumed something
There's
additionally was built?
There was addition built onto it. The original build was 2013 with addition done in 2019.
Do you know what that addition entailed?
I can give you one moment. Constructing a one-story, 9,270 square foot car wash addition to a dealership. And that value, bear with me, I have to go back to another one. A lot of these permits have, they're bound together, so they don't have a construction value. Give me 1 second. Just trying to find the permit value for it. I can't give you the permit value that was put on it, just the use. I can't determine that at this point in time. So,
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
That's fine. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thanks, Carrie. Ron, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and neither do I. Mr. Smith, bear with us 1 second while we pull up your brief. Okay, Mr. Smith, when you are ready, oh boy, okay. When you're ready, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Story and I will be handling the properties here together today. I have some verbal commentary that I'll provide based on just the evidence that's submitted before us here today by both parties, basically, as well as knowledge just in regard to the automobile dealership real estate, the automobile dealership industry. So that is our starting point here. So before we get into the specific property, again, I'll cover this ground once, and it's to carry forward with regard to all 6 of the properties that we'll be covering.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith, could I ask that you summarize the points of it?
Absolutely. I will try and be as concise as I can. I know I don't always do that, so I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. So to start with, I will cover a bit of background with regard to automobile dealerships and the sale of automobile dealerships. So the way that the automobile dealership industry works is that the brands control who has the rights to sell their particular cars in a marketplace. They tightly control that. It's not outright owned by the dealership owner themselves, and the brand strictly regulates how many dealerships they have in the market, where they're located, what the building is to look like, etc. So when you have an outside participant looking to enter a market such as Winnipeg, they can't come in and open up a Toyota dealership without Toyota allowing that. And in a market such as Winnipeg, we're at saturation point where each of the main brands has all of their they have all of the regions of the city covered, so they don't allow additional locations to be opened up. So essentially, as an outsider, you have to come in and purchase what is available in order to operate in the market as a dealer. So what that means is that the realty owner has the upper hand essentially in any negotiation with regard to the trade of their property, because the trade of the property always goes along essentially with the sale of the dealership franchise, along with goodwill and all the other things that go along with that. What that means is that any sale of the realty that's recorded at land titles is a motivated sale, in that the purchaser is motivated to enter the market and will pay an above market rate. And it also means that the vendor, if they're looking to retire and exit, essentially, in order for them to capitalize on what they've built there, they can't outright sell their franchise, as that's controlled by the brands. So in order for them to capitalize on that, they have to capitalize on it in the sale of the real estate. So when these transactions happen, they're impacted by all of those items, and it leads to inflated values that are not representative of market value. So no matter what is stated, that is the case for the transactions that occur. If you look at the sale of the Subaru dealership on Pembina Highway, as well as the Subaru dealership or Toyota, if it was on Regent by Frontier, that was exactly the case. They tied the purchaser, initial tenant, that being the owner that came in from Vancouver, Jim Pattison, very large dealership owner in Canada. They tied them to a well above market lease rate for a term of 5 years, with the ability for them to either extend the lease at that point or buy at an again above market rate at the expiry of the end of the first term. So if you look at the transaction, they bought it out at the end of the first term and immediately moved their dealership to the Waverly West site as they were building their dealership over there. So they weren't buying the real estate as such; they were buying the right to have. They weren't buying the realty; they were buying the dealership as such, because as shown by the immediate move from that particular location, it's now a development site. So that needs to be kept in mind in looking at the actual sales. Moving on, the valuation model that the city uses of looking at big box retail is flawed with regard to looking at comparison for automobile dealers. Now, as we all agree, there's no arm's length leases out on the marketplace for us to look at, including the Subaru dealership. And there's no capitalization rate. So we do need to look at the market in order to arrive at the best model. However, the best model is not looking at big box retail. And I'll point out the reasons for this. And I do have background in this, having worked for commercial real estate brokerage and landlord over a significant period of time. Bear with me for just a moment here. We are looking at special use properties. So automobile dealerships are considered in the industry as special use or special purpose properties. And this means that they cannot typically be assigned to other uses, or they are not readily adapted to alternative uses. So what does this mean in the marketplace? It means that if you go back to the list of lease comparables that we were just looking at moments ago, which I have now, of course, slightly misplaced. But let's look at the tenancies that are here. So you have Ashley, Michaels, Savon, Lazy Boy, etc. So where do these properties locate? They locate on big box center sites, on power center sites. They locate for a reason in these locations, in that there's an aggregate value there. They locate with similar properties side by side to make to facilitate easier shopping and more drive more sales for themselves by locating on these power center sites. So they pay more rent to be there because they drive much more business value for themselves. Now, that's the location aspect. If you look at the location of these dealerships that we're dealing with today, they're on the auto mall sites, obviously on Waverly there, no supportive retail around it. Where's the retail? It is around significantly around the corner at the corner of McGilvery and Kenniston, and in that stretch there where you have IKEA and all of the other big box stores. Are you going to get any of those tenants to move from there into any of these buildings? No, you're not. A, because of location. They're absolutely not going to go there. B, Mr. Neufeld was 100% right with the 1717 side of the property. You can't put them in there. There's a restriction on it. So automatically that's not happening. But at least as importantly is the special use nature of these properties. They are built out as dealerships, and you can't take one of these retail retail tenants and put them into these spaces. They won't go there, but the building does not fit them either. Power dealerships built, they are showroom / office at the front of the property. That's the glitzy part where they put in the fancy flooring or whatnot in order to, and all the glazing in order to sell the cars. You have the financing offices, you have the admin offices, you have a coffee lounge, that, you know, all of those particular things. Some mezzanine office in some cases. And then you essentially have a wall, and at the back you have the service area for servicing of vehicles. Now, if you look at that, it obviously is for servicing of vehicles. It's bare floors, bare ceilings, bare everything, not finished in any way. You have drainage grates, you have hoists. You have many overhead doors for access and
Mr. Smith,
yes.
I'm sorry, can I cut in, please? Would it be fair to summarize that the car dealerships are a different beast, and you're presenting that the comparisons used by the assessor are not relevant to the valuation of the car dealership? I don't mean to cut you off, but would that be fair?
That would be fair comment, and I think I probably brought forward most of my points, so I'm happy to have that particular discussion there. My only further point would be if you look at the layout of big box, you're looking at essentially 90% selling floor with some loading and warehouse at the rear of it. If you walk into them, that's how they're laid out. That's what they need. They're not going to find that in these particular properties. So there really is no transference. There is no tenant rep out there that is going to take their big box tenant to an auto dealership location. So that's that background. As I mentioned, the restrictions on title, are we on 1717? Yes, we are. So as Mr. Neufeld mentioned, you can only have automobile uses in the condominium corporation that has the 1717 Waverly auto mall portion. Obviously, that's a restriction on use, restriction that would impact value. Moving forward, the automobile industry itself. So what's happening in the automobile industry? We're looking at significant revision that's happened. I think this was referred to briefly, the dominance of online shopping, which has only increased during the COVID timeframe, allows potential purchasers to do all of their shopping online, essentially, in order to look at what vehicle they might want, make all the comparisons, and at the very end, maybe go for a test drive, but they don't need to go dealership to dealership to compare them. This leads to less of a need for bricks and mortar and is driving consolidation in the industry. Essentially, what we're seeing is the move towards distribution centers almost, where you have people do their shopping online and then come in and pick the vehicle up in the center itself. The COVID-19 pandemic itself also had an impact. There was a significant drop off, obviously, when everything was shut down in 2020. There was restricted access to these sites, and the dealers, by and large, had significant employment layoffs over that time as well.
Okay. Yeah, we're aware of the COVID. Perhaps would it be fair for you to go to your income calculation now, Mr. Smith?
Well, that was coincidentally most of the ground I wanted to cover, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy to do that at this point. We can jump forward.
Maybe I'll ask you that'll be relevant and be applied to the rest of the properties that you're representing today.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. As I guess indicated at the beginning, most of this commentary is intended to be carried forward for all 6 of the properties that we're looking at. So please consider those discussions as we go forward. So what is the valid model for valuing these properties? Well, There's nothing on the market that's arm's length for auto dealers, so we can't refer to that. So you need to look at what is the property, look at the components of it, and then make appropriate comparisons to market information. So if we look at an automobile dealership, you essentially have two components of it. You have the showroom retail / office, which forms the front half of the property, where they sell the vehicles, where they finance them, where the admin offices are. That's the shinier portion. It's closer to a retail property in that sense, although distinct from the ones that we were referring to. And then at the rear of the property, you have the service area for the property. And that being a vehicle service garage, essentially. They do all of the work on the properties there, tire rotation, oil changes, all of the repairs on properties, detailing, all of that happens in the rear of the property. And you're essentially looking at a split between the front and the rear, and there is variations in this, obviously, but you're looking at in the neighborhood of 40% for the showroom retail and roughly 60% for the vehicle service garage at the rear of the property. Now, that is the breakout that I myself see. This has also been mirrored, I believe, by Mr. Story in his valuation. If you want to speak about the split and how that comes about.
Well, honestly, the panel has an understanding of the physical nature of a car dealership. I don't think that it's necessary. Mr. Story, I don't mean to cut you off, but
my evidence was primarily anecdotal. And in any case, I just want to speak to how I've been doing this for over 30 years. And all these car dealerships weren't there when we started doing the role. I started with them in 2003. I can bring some insight, but the time is late, so let's just have Mr. Smith carry on. He's doing a great job.
So, Mr. Smith, can we focus on your page? Page 2. Your rent, your square footage, your rent rate, where that came from, and obviously your different parameters in the assessor and in vacancy expenses and your different cap rate, please.
We can, Mr. Chair, and I'm not going to expand greatly here, but I know Mr. Story was intending to speak about where the rental value comes from. So he was looking at comparable retail properties of a similar utility in a similar location where they're not on big box sites driving greater rents. And he was seeing rents that would support a value in the neighborhood of $15 a square foot, roughly, that being for 40% of the property. If you were to look at the rear of the property, he had both the vehicle service garage in mind, as well as kind of a flex warehouse or warehouse type rental rate in mind for the rear of the property, that being in the neighborhood of $10 per square foot for roughly 60% of the property. Now, that's not going to be exact for each and every one of these, but if you take that split and you do the math based on the 40% and the 60%, you would come out to $12 per square foot for the property as a rental rate. Now, we have comparables to back this up. Of course, I don't see them necessarily in the brief here today. However, I've done 2 full slates of auto dealerships and referred to them in some of the material that we'll cover here today. So the $12 is what that would come out to if you look at those rental rates. If we look at this property and the others, we have made a bump to that $12 a square foot up to $12 and 50 cents a square foot to just recognize the age, perhaps some of the finish, etc., in portions of the building. So we're using $12.50 per square foot in terms of valuation on the rental rate. Now, the other parameters, you've already heard from Mr. Neufeld with regard to the shortfall. I'm not going to cover the same ground, nor am I going to make any adjustment to what's here already, but certainly the taxes form a very significant part of the expenses for auto dealerships, given the rate that that is applied to them. The valuation with regard to non-recoverable expenses, everybody's heard that. We've applied a structural component of 2% for replacement reserve for structural, and then a non-recoverable expense amount of 5%, in keeping with the history of assessment of these types of properties in the marketplace. We move down to capitalization rates. I believe I referred briefly to the city's brief and the capitalization rates that are presented there on page number 5. So again, city's model is using retail parameters with adjustments according to the discussion we heard for the subject properties, whether they're slightly newer or whatever the variation would be. So let's look at those caps. We have regional shopping centers from 6.1 to 7.2. Really no comparison to the subject. Any purchaser of St. Patel Shopping Center or Polo Park is an entirely different animal than what one that would be looking at purchase of an automobile dealership. Their financing requirements are vastly different, and cap rates would be significantly different. Indeed, their risk tolerance and what they're buying is very different as well. You have 100 tenants versus 1. That's just a figure, not obviously anything exact, but very, very different animals. Equally, auto centers and neighborhood shopping centers, very significantly different properties. Your values there would be much greater than what we're looking at for an individual dealership.
So based on that summary, you're proposing a 7.5% capitalization rate. Is that correct?
We are proposing a 7.5% capitalization rate. If you look at the industry material from Colliers, CB Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, as shown on that page, not that these are strip centers, they're not, but they're more in keeping with the size of the subject. 6 to 6.75% for Colliers, 5.75 to 7.5 for CB Richard Ellis, rather large spread, probably covering power centers, and 5.75 to 7.25% for Cushman and Wakefield. So we have a special use property that really has no use to other potential users in the market other than automobile dealerships. So there is a risk premium that needs to be applied. The phases of an automobile dealership are essentially 3. There's your first run automobile dealership, so your branded dealership being Ford, Mazda, Honda, whatever it is, Toyota in this case. When they become obsolete for that purpose, they go down the rank to the second purpose, which is as a used auto dealership. And when they become obsolete for that purpose, they essentially become development sites. I have numerous properties that I can point to.
No, that's okay, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
But
could you please state your final value request?
Absolutely. So again, using that increased risk premium for the reasons I've stated, we're using a capitalization rate of 7.5%. sorry, hold on for a moment. We were using a capitalization rate of 7.5% in our valuation, and this is summarized on page number 2 and gives us a final market value of $6,249,000. Now, if I go back briefly, and this is history, not comparing assessments to assessments, because we're not looking at other properties.
No, Mr. Smith, I think we'll leave it at that, please. That's your value. I would appreciate it if we could just stick to that value estimate and not go back and just do it.
Mr. Chair, I certainly don't mean to be argumentative, but we're looking at a 58.8% increase in the assessed value of the property from 5.9 million up to 3.4 million, roughly.
Okay.
Very significant gap.
Yeah, comment noted. Thank you.
All right, the addenda materials that are included in the brief here, I believe, refer to properties that I was involved in. They were based on either rental rates of $13 or $12.50, depending whether it was a new property or not, and capitalization rates of 7.5 and 7.25, depending on the property, all noted in the addenda materials.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And we can assume that that presentation will be relevant and be placed on the following briefs that we're going to deal with.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Poole, any questions at all?
No, I'll trust the board's competency for these arguments before.
Okay,
Other than, yeah.
That's appreciated. Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
Actually, I would just like to redirect to the assessor, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Poole, we just heard Mr. Smith's presentation and his point about the car dealerships being completely different from your comps of the big box stores, etc. Do you have any examples of a car dealership that has been turned into a successful retail property?
No, off the top of my head, no. I mean, there were some older ones that, as properties moved away, there's one at Royal Sports on Pembina, but I mean, generally, no. I would say overall. But the reason why we're going, like the retail market, is because the board has ordered that. These topics have already been covered, although it's a dated order. That's what they indicated was the most similar to. So. As far as physical change, what these happen, and what I've noticed is this is all driven by manufacturers. They make you redevelop your property, or we go build another one. The older one that has more functional obsolescence in it typically gets turned into a used car dealership and either is sold outright and the used car dealer occupies it as an owner occupier, or the parent company keeps control of it and they sell the used cars that they can't sell that are not really quality enough to be sold as certified on-site used at these lesser dealerships. So they're still kind of in control of it, but they typically wouldn't be converted over to like a big box store used. That's not the rationale why we're putting big box store type rents on. It's because the board has ordered that this is the most like similar to, and
right, which I understand. I was just curious to know if anything had actually ever been converted.
Royal Sports is the one that I can really think of. Mm-hmm. There's maybe a few more, if that. I really can't think of anything that comes off the top of my mind.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Poole. Yes, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Carrie. Ron, any questions?
None, thank you.
And I have no questions either. That concludes item number 4, Unit 600, 1717 Waverly Street. Next item on the docket is item number 5, file number 22-3350. Address is 1717 Waverly Street, Unit 700. And we're doing the 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Poole, bear with me one second while we pull up your brief. When you are ready, Mr. Poole, thank you.
Just give me one moment. I'm pulling up my brief too.
Okay, there we go. When you're ready, please.
There we go. Okay. So we have roll number, which this property's roll number is 0309296930. It's unit 700, 1770 Waverly. We have an assessed value for 11,412,000. It was built in 2005 with an addition put on in 2019. The leasable area is 52,833 square feet. If we look at our page 9 is the subject property. So there's two distinct buildings on the same roll number. One, it's obviously Crown Nissan. And you can see the addition that they put on there as well. So aside from that, it's obviously owner occupied. So we'll go straight, all things we discussed earlier will apply again as well. So on page 3 is the workup. So for the VSG, because one is a collision center, vehicle collision center, we call it a VSG, and the other one is the dealership. So for the VSG, we have 26,356 square feet for $16.51, which produces a PGI of 435,138. Our same standard parameters do apply, which produces a net operating income of $410,479, capped at 7.45%, as this is the older of the two, which produces a value of $5,510,000. The newer portion is the 26 is on the page 4, which is the actual dealership, which is 26,477 square feet. We have a $15.25 rent on the property, which produces a PGI of $403,774. Same standard parameters do apply again. Net operating produced is $380,651, capped at 6.45%, gives us our $5,902,000. On the next page, page 5, is a summary of the two income streams, which leads us back to the $11,412,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Mr. Smith or Mr. Story, any questions of the assessor's evidence? We've got two income streams presented by the assessor and totaling out at a total value of $11,412,000 on the roll. Mr. Smith, sorry.
I would just ask that the questions that I had for the first one carry forward, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate it. Carrie, any questions of the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, any questions?
Just one, Mr. Pohl, do you feel like the cap rates used, you're using two different cap rates? So I would assume that the one of them is applicable to the rear section. Is it not?
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite hear you. Can you repeat that?
You're using 7.45 cap rate for 26,300 square feet, and a different cap rate of 6.45 for another square footage. So
yeah, because one is treated as a dealership, which is the full dealership. The other one is just a collision center.
okay,
So there should be a difference. We do have lower rates generally for full service car dealerships, and if there is a collision center, whether it be on roll or off roll, we would have a higher cap rate generally on that.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Ron. I have no questions either. Mr. Smith, shall we get to your brief, please? Bear with us. Mr. Smith, before we proceed, shall we consider the evidence presented on the previous hearing as relevant to this property?
Yes, absolutely. And please carry it forward for the remainder of the properties as well. We don't.
Can I make this simple and just question you, with all due respect, could I question you on your income stream and point out the differences between yourself and the assessor and consider that evidence presented?
I have a very, very brief couple of points that I wanted to make with this one, and then we can do that.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so we're looking at one of the larger dealerships here, obviously in terms of gross floor area. When you combine the two buildings, structures, we have nearly 53,000 square feet in terms of leasable area. That's all main floor space. And what this results in, both in being a larger dealership such as that, but we results in an inadequate land to plan area ratio of 4:1. Now, with auto dealers, and I didn't mention this on the first one, so please carry it forward for the rest of them. They need space for storing the vehicles for sale. They need customer parking. They need parking for the vehicles that are there for service, and staff have to park somewhere as well. So typically they need an 8:1 ratio. This is 4:1, less than half, or exactly half, I guess. What you see is that they have to buy land elsewhere and store their vehicles and bring them, need them. So this particular property definitely significantly has that issue. What I would point out with regard to the city's valuation, which I didn't when we were running through it, is that yes, there are two cap rates that are used there, but we're looking at a single property. It's on a single title. They're not divisible. You can't value them as separate, as it can't be sold separately. It's on the same lot and title as well. The whole thing is one. So it's a single cap rate. It's not two different cap rates with two different potential sales. So equally, if you combine the two into the total 52,883 square feet, you would drive a lower rental rate by the model as well, versus the 16 and 15 that are shown in the city's value. Looking at our valuation, really no different than the last one here. We have a rental rate of $12.50 per square foot for the reasons stated, and a cap rate of 7.5% as mentioned already for the whole property. And that covers both the collision center as well as the dealership. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant?
I have no questions.
Thank you very much. Ron, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you, and I have none either. That concludes item number 5, unit 900. 1717 Waverly Street. Next item on the docket is item number 6, file number 22-3610. It's the unit number 917 Waverly Street, and we are dealing with a 2023 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Pohl, when you are ready, please.
Okay. Roll number is 030929699200, unit 900-1770 Waverly. The 2023 assessment is for $6,393,000. The building was built in 2005 with an addition put on in 2019 for an overall effective year built in 2012. We have a leasable area of 29,076 square feet. If we go to page 7, is the photograph of the property. It's Winnipeg Honda. It is owner occupied. Everything that we've already spoke of is carrying forward, so that'll apply as well. So we'll go to the workup. The work was on page 3. For the area, 29,076 square feet, we have $15.16, which gives a PGI of $440,792. All the same standard parameters apply, which produces net operating income of $415,528, capped at 6.5%, gives us our value at $6,393,000. With that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Mr. Smith, any additional questions other than the prior ones asked?
Nothing is jumping out at me right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Ron, any questions of the assessor?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, and I have no questions either. Mr. Smith, bear with us 1 second, and we'll pull up your brief. Mr. Smith, when you are ready, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are looking at unit 91717 Waverly. This is the Winnipeg Honda location. You've heard my extensive discussion about the special use nature of dealerships, the automobile industry, rental rates, the proper modeling, all of that carries forward, obviously, for this property. And we look at the valuation on page number 2. Again, we have applied a rental rate of $12.50 a square foot. That's for the whole structure. Including the mezzanine space that is included in this, which is roughly 4,000 square feet, and used a capitalization rate of 7.5%. All of our other valuation parameters, as mentioned previously, are the same as we had already discussed. So using $12.50 and a cap rate of 7.5% gives us a market value of $4,165,000.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant? Mr. Pohl is...
No, he's here.
Okay.
You'll have to he's doing so well.
Just lost his camera.
I'm not sure.
Ron has vowed to be an expert on the camera next time you see him. So
Mr. Pohl,
I'm here. Yes, I apologize. It went into seek driving mode, and I was like, "How do I get back to the actual screen?" No. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, any questions?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. That concludes item number 6, unit number 900. Next item on the docket is item number 7, file number 22-3337. Address is 1700 Waverly Street, Unit A. And we're dealing with the 2020-23 Realty Assessment Appeal. Mr. Pohl, when you are ready, please.
You are muted.
Technology, eh? Rule number is 030650433300. Address is Unit A, 1700 Waverly. The 2023 assessment is for $7,339,000. It's built in 1999. We have a leasable area of 36,740 square feet. It was an older sale for approximately 4.9 million. We have pictures of it on page 7. So as you can see, it sits on Waverly, prime corner within the condominium development. And it's obviously owner occupied. So we get to the income stream, which is on page 3. For the 36,740 square feet, we have $14.31 applied to it, which produces a PGI of 525,749. Same standard parameters that we're speaking of today apply again, which produces a net operating income of $495,368, capped at 6.75%. Gives us our $7,339,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Smith, any questions of the assessor's evidence presented?
Sorry, just bear with me for a few seconds, Mr. Chair.
No problem.
The only thing I was going to ask Mr. Poole was the cap rate is different here. We're looking at 6.75 versus I think it was 6.45% in the last property. Is that an age issue or
Age issue, and the size is a little bit bigger, marginally bigger, but a little bit bigger, 37-ish thousand square feet.
versus the 26 when the property is broken into the two components for the last one?
Yeah, because they're two separate and distinct income streams.
Okay. Okay, that's my only question.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Carrie, any questions of the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ron, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ron. And I have no questions either. Mr. Smith, bear with us a second, please. And when you're ready, Mr. Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So slight correction here. We have the wrong photo on the cover of the brief. Little hiccup there. It's actually,
We don't do January. I was wondering.
it's actually Waverly Jeep Chrysler. So please disregard that photo.
Okay.
That's not the right one. The subject property was in appeal, and Mr. Story can attest to this, as he was handling it for 2020. If you look at page 5 of the evidence, the decision from the last cycle is there, and it states it's based on the evidence presented by the applicant, which I believe Mr. Story, you said was $11.50 a square foot as a rental rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, noted.
All right. So just again, in looking at that, previous assessment was reduced to $4,715,000 in 2020. We're now at $7,339,000 for 2023. This is 55.7% over $2.6 million increase. Again, we just don't see that in the marketplace as representative of market value. So moving forward quickly, we're looking at property built in 1999. So it's not a modern brand new dealership by any means. Over 36,000 square feet. And for the valuation, as we've already discussed, we applied the same parameters, $12.50 a square foot, and a capitalization rate of 7.5%. And again, I would point the panel members to the addendum materials for further reference with regard to decisions on other auto dealers in this cycle. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Poole, any questions of the applicant?
I don't have any.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions of the applicant?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Ron, any questions?
No, thank you.
And I have no questions either. That concludes item number 7. Next item on the docket is item number 8. File number 22-334. And the address is 1700 Waverly Street, Unit B. And Mr. Poole, when you are ready, and we're dealing with 2023 assessment appeal, sorry, and when you're ready, Mr. Poole.
Sure. Roll number is 030650434400. Unit B, 1700 Waverly. We have a 2023 assessed value at $3,206,000. The property was built in 2000. The leasable area is 13,955 square feet. We look at our page 7 is the photographs of the property. It's Crown Acura. So it is owner occupied, obviously. So same argument applies as we've already heard today. Or evidence, I should say, applies as already heard. On page 3 is the workup for the 13,955 square feet. We have $15.39 applied, which is $214,209 for PGI. Our same standard parameters applied to that gives a net operating income of $201,952, capped at 6.3%, gives a value of $3,206,000. And the capitalization rate is because it is a bit of a smaller property. There'd be more players that are capable of buying this, obviously, at a little under 14,000 square feet, as it would be, if it was triple the size or quadruple the size. So capitalization rate for the risk is a little bit lower accordingly, and as it should be. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Smith, questions of the assessor's evidence?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Apply the same questions before. Thank you. Excuse me. Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I have no questions either, Mr. Smith. We will pull up your brief. Bear with us, please. And Mr. Smith, when you are ready, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So property we're dealing with is Crown Acura, obviously, as shown on the cover page of the brief. And I will point out here that we're looking at a gross floor area of just under 14,000 square feet, 13,955 square feet. This property would potentially be heading towards that second stage of the lifespan of a dealership, based on its size. Built in 2000, but it's only 14,000 square feet, so it's not the same, obviously, as modern ones. Something to keep in mind. Looking at the 2020 assessment for subject property, it was reduced to $1,953,000 based on a rental rate of $11.50 a square foot. And when we look at the 2023 assessment, we are now looking at assessment of $3,206,000. That's an increase of $1,253,000, which equates again to an increase of 64.2% in the value of the property. Again, we don't see that on the marketplace. It simply is not an appropriate level of increase over that time span. The valuation for the subject has not been changed. We're still looking at a rental rate of $12.50 a square foot. So $1 a square foot higher, significant jump from the 2020 valuation, and a cap rate of 7.5%. All the other parameters as shown on page number 2, which gives us a market value of $1,999,000. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Pohl, any questions of the applicant?
I don't have any.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Ron, any questions of the applicant?
I can't write that fast. No, thanks.
Thank you. Carrie, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and neither do I. That concludes item number 8, Unit B, 1700 Waverly Avenue and Waverly Street, pardon me. Now, the last item on the docket, item number 9, is file number 22-3349. It's Units 1700 Waverly Street. And we're dealing with 2022 assessment report. What the heck is that? Okay. Mr. Pohl, when you are ready, please.
Sure.
Can
Everyone
everybody
can hear me?
Hold on. Let's try this.
We're all good?
So,
We're still broadcasting, I know we can't see them.
Everyone can hear me?
Sound weird.
Yeah, it's cutting in and out a bit.
we're getting somebody's radio message crossing into the Zoom audio. There.
Okay, just let me know when I can go if you guys can hear me. Great.
Yes.
If not,
Go ahead, Mr. Pohl.
okay. So phone roll number is 030650435500. Unit C, 1700 Waverly. The 2023 assessed values for $3,532,000. It was built in 2000. The square foot area, leasable area is 15,743 square feet. We look at page 7 is photographs of the property. Crown Automax is occupying the property. If we go back to the workup is on page 3. For that square foot area, we have $15.23 applied, which produces a 239,766 PGI. Same standard parameters that we've already discussed today. It produces a net operating income of $226,033, capped at 6.4%, gives a value of $3,532,000 rounded. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Of the applicant. Oh, we're getting that.
Yeah. I can hear enough. I can hear well enough to get this.
Okay. Mr. Smith, any questions?
No, we have no further questions, just the ones already asked.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Harry, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ron, any questions?
I have no issue.
And I have no questions either. Thank you. Is that me reverberating funny or?
Whatever you just did, it sounds better.
Okay. That's weird. Okay. Mr. Smith, when you're ready, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're almost making our time limit here, so we'll be very quick. The 2020 assessment for the property was reduced from $2,879,000 to $2,098,000 based on the applicant's NOI and a change of cap rate. The NOI was based on a rental rate of $11.50 a square foot. Again, we're using $12.50 for the subject for the current time frame, and a cap rate of 7.5% in the analysis. We're looking at a 68.4% increase in the assessed value based on the model to $3,532,000, a jump of $1,434,000. if we look at this particular property, and this is a good indication, was built in 2000, total of 15,743 square feet, was originally Sunrise Toyota. It's now a second-hand dealership, used autos, Automax, with their service package as well, as you can see from the photo. So it has moved down the scale due to obsolescence, and it's now a used auto dealer. Mr. Story, did you have anything further to add?
I mentioned to you earlier, I'm on the road, but that particular property was vacant for about 4 or 5 years. And they were offered at one time, people were offered the site for common area costs only, for all costs. And it's just, the problem is too small. It's 14,000 square feet. It's a complete ownership. It's just, so it kind of proves they do deal with it.
30-second addition to that, Saturn dealerships were built in the city in 1999. Saturn went bankrupt, and the size of the units were such that they became used auto dealers as well, just to support that particular point. So using the 1250 rate, 7.5% cap, our final market value is $2,255,000, which is from the last cycle as well. And that is our presentation.
Not bad.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Paul, any questions of the applicant?
No, but if I could I make just a commentary on the nature of the use of it now and the vacancy and a little bit?
Perhaps I'm going to ask the members if they have any questions. Sherry, do you have any questions? I think you're muted. You're muted, Carrie.
Sorry. I just have a question, Mr. Smith, in regards to your properties you presented today, number 4 through 9. It seems as though, well, doesn't matter size, age, whatever. You've given them a $12.50 per square foot and a 7.5 cap. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to that.
Yeah, so the capitalization rate is, again, we have no auto caps that we can look at. So we did look at capitalization rates for properties with comparable utility on the market. So we looked at the sale of strip malls, as well as sales of some industrial properties that would have some utility, similar utility to the rear of the service area of these particular properties. And again, looking at the special use nature, the 7.5% capitalization rate was in line with that. If you look at the chart in the city's brief that summarizes all of the external sources, you can kind of see where that figure would come from as well, with regard to additional support.
Okay, so, but you disregarded the size of the buildings and the age, though, essentially.
Well,
because it's an overall cap rate of 7.5.
Cap rate that has been applied to them, yes. But again, the special use nature of the property would, because of the restrictions that have placed on the property, narrow your market, which would add to the risk of the property. So we have used the 7.5 as representative of that, as well as all of the other factors. So we didn't break it down by age and size, etc. You're correct.
Okay, I thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
All my questions.
Ron, any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. Mr. Pohl, I believe you wanted to speak.
Yeah, sorry, just to sum up, since we've got a minute or two. And I think this particular unit, this particular property indicates the distinct difference between the value and how we're doing it. It seems the appellant is looking at it from a perspective of attaining a car dealership. And I'll say right off the hop kind of thing, what I've noticed in the marketplace is manufacturers are requiring bigger and better updated sites, more square foot to attain it and keep a franchise for a car dealership. Mainly due to the use that you can sell more, service more, you make more money, they make more money. And I get that. This one here is smaller, so it's harder to get an actual manufacturer to allow a franchise to go in. Makes sense. But we're not valuing it based on what a car dealership would go in and pay, because we don't know, and because they're always owner occupied. What we're taking these is retail marketplace and transposing that here. So the argument that is very different from what the opponent's saying from what we're saying. If you're looking at it from our perspective, there is not that car dealership valuation that we're looking at and the risk of obtaining that here. We're just simply taking the market rent for a similar sized building and transposing that here with the costs associated with the typical cap rate. So when we hear risk as far as can I get a car dealership, that's not what we're putting the value towards this at all, because quite frankly, if we had that pool of data to work from, you could put rents in, but there isn't any. There is no vacancy rates. There's none of this that we can apply. So when we're seeing it from our perspective, it's simply straight from what municipal board's already indicated. You look to the retail marketplace for national and international franchise type occupancies, and you transpose it. So in this case here, you shouldn't be looking at it as far as can it get a car dealership, just simply making it equitable what other retailers pay and transposing it. So that's our, it's a pretty good distinction between how we're valuing. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Mr. Smith, any requirement or Mr. Story for summary?
Well, suddenly I feel the need to have a summary. I should have talked a little bit longer, I guess, perhaps. No, John, yes, I do have a summary, I guess. The point of all of the extensive discussion that I provided there is that these are auto dealerships. They have no other purpose. We're not valuing the business, so it doesn't matter that they're selling Mercedes or Hondas or used Hondas out of here or servicing them. It's the real estate that we're valuing. So it's not the business component that needs to be taken into account. So when you look at the real estate, as I've discussed, you have to find the best model for doing so, because there's no market evidence out there of an arm's length nature. So I believe we've done that. I've given you our perspective and the model, given you the history of the decisions in this cycle, which were all based on extensive lease comps, etc. So I think I can probably let it rest at that. Did you have
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm just going to thank the assessor and both parties for being efficient with your presentations and your questions. But I'm going to assure you both that as we make our decisions, we will refer to your brief submitted and consider that evidence, okay? In addition to what you presented to us so effectively. We have heard all the items and the hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good